So Alabama rolled into the weekend riding a high, having gotten a massive commitment in the class of 2025 yesterday. As one of the top prospects in the nation, four-star running back Anthony Rogers committed to Alabama. But they were not done on the recruiting trail stacking wins, as earlier today, they get a big win in the class of 2024 for a three-star offensive lineman, Joseph Ionata, something we need to break down. But we also need to talk about a coach for the Crimson Tide that's on fire on the recruiting trail. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe Alabama recruiting is about to surge? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you part of this unbelievable community. And don't forget to like and comment down below if you enjoyed the content. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, who is Joseph Ionata? Well, Joseph Ionata is a three-star interior offensive lineman from the state of Florida. And one of the intriguing things about this commitment is how it occurred. It did not take long for Joseph Ionata to convert the offer into a commitment, as this was an individual who camped at Alabama this week. The staff liked what they saw at the camp, extended the offer, and it did not take long for him to decide that he wanted to roll with the Tide. And this is a great addition for the class of 2024 for Alabama. It's their first offensive lineman, and this is going to be an intriguing class. Already in the class for Alabama, you have a five-star quarterback, you have a five-star athlete, you have a five-star wide receiver, and now I'm really interested in the attention to detail that Coach Wolford will pay to that offensive line. But what does this mean for Alabama's recruiting class as a whole before we start diving in and talking about the coach I told you all about in the intro? Well, for the Crimson Tide recruiting class in the class of 2024, this puts them just outside the top 10 at number 11. And they are one of three teams in all of college football recruiting that come inside the top 15 teams without 10 prospects or more. It's Alabama, it's South Carolina, and it's the Florida Gators that can boast that achievement. All three of those teams coming inside the top 15 recruiting classes in the nation with less than 10 commitments. And for Alabama, this is a really solid class, especially entering into the summer months. One of the themes on this channel is if you really look around recruiting, if you pay attention this summer, recruiting really heats up. There are fireworks that are going to happen. So for the Crimson Tide, if we look at the foundation they've laid going into summer, I think you have to be pleased. There's several big-time battles ahead of them, several prospects they're going to try and flip, several prospects they have that they're going to try and keep teams from flipping from them, and it's going to be a good time. But as I stated in the intro, I think there's a coach I want to turn our attention to, someone who hasn't been with the Crimson Tide long, but in the short time he's been there, I think he's done a lot of really solid work, and that's Coach Eric Wolford. Because Coach Wolford got there just about a year ago in January 2022, and one of the biggest things I was excited to see is the turnaround he would lead on that offensive line. Because the 2021-2022 season for the Crimson Tide, though they achieved a lot, that offensive line was truly all over the place. And at the end of the year, they graded worse than offensive lines we talked about consistently as being units that must improve. That Crimson Tide offensive line was in a really shaky place. What made it an even bigger question going into the 2022-2023 season is that they lost a first-rounder off of that offensive line. Now, the Tide had recruited well there, I grant you that, but it's one thing to recruit well, it's another thing for those guys to make the conversion from high school football to college football successfully and be able to take the reins. That's a very difficult position to make that jump from, something we talk about consistently. But Coach Wolford came in January and instantly led a turnaround without a first rounder on this offensive line in Evan Neal. And that was something that I found to be compelling, was that the offensive line was still growing this year. We saw that through the course of the year, but by the end of the year, they were playing much better football. Even at the beginning of the year, I thought they were playing much more complete, cohesive football than they were the year before, and the consistency was better. And by the end of the year, it was still improving. So I'm really interested to see what Coach Eric Wolford will do in year two with the Crimson Tide along that offensive line. But let's pay some attention to the work he's done on the recruiting trail, because though he hasn't been there long, my goodness me, his impact has been felt here. If we look at the class of 2023, he put in work, getting five-star offensive lineman Caden Proctor, and first and foremost, what a win that was. The Iowa kid committed to Iowa for a while. Alabama was in the battle, but it was real tough prying him from Iowa, and yet Coach Wolford, so many other coaches from this Alabama staff, they stayed adamant and they ended up getting a big-time win. You have Wilkin Formby, who is a top 100 prospect. You have Ola Salinan, who is a top 200 prospect. You have Miles McVay, who is a top 200 prospect. And you have Raquez McElderry, who is a blue-chip 4-star offensive lineman. And that's all just in the class of 2023. In the class of 2024, now he can boast Joseph Ionata, the 3-star interior offensive lineman. And if we extend into the class of 2025, well, he has Mason Short, a top 100 offensive lineman, and Dontrell Glover, a top 200 prospect in the nation. So Coach Wolford is having his presence felt, and I'm super intrigued to see what strides this offensive line is going to make this year, especially with some of the talent there. The offensive line is an area I'm very keyed in on this year for Alabama, and a lot of it is because of the talent there, but also because of Coach Eric Wolford. But it's awesome to see Coach Wolford continue the winning streaks on the trail, getting Alabama their first offensive lineman in the class of 2024. Hop down to the comments and let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.